So thanks for bearing with us. According to the schedule, we're running a little bit behind, but don't worry, we've rejigged things, so we're going to get to lunch on time. That means that the format for this is going to change slightly, and these guys aren't aware yet. But basically, I'll introduce you to the speakers that you haven't met yet, get them to talk a little bit about their companies. Whilst that's happening, have a think about any questions for any of the panelists, and once we're done with the intros, we'll have some roving mics and you can ask questions. So get those ready if you would, please. So don't ask them on the Slido, just go for the mics. Brilliant. Is that all clear, team?
That's all clear.
Excellent.
Lee.
Throw our notes away.
Yeah, throw your notes away. So you've met Gaby and you've met John. We have Ben here and Iris. Maybe I could ask you to introduce yourselves. Iris, maybe start with you. What you do and something about the company as well.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for your invite, Lee, and good to see so many people here in the room. My name is Iris de Vos. I work for Fugro. Fugro is a company who is we are serving our clients with geodata solutions. We do that both on land but also at sea. And I work for Fleet Services. That is our sort of shipping department, shipping entity. And my role is there. My role is sustainability manager, and I am initiating and providing new environmental sustainability initiatives for our whole fleet. Our fleet is consisting of 28 vessels, which we are owning but also managing. These are the vessels with crew. We also have the uncrewed survey vessels. We have nowadays 7 of these. We're going to expand also this fleet. Besides all that fleet, we also chartering extra vessels. It is our third-party vessels, and we have over the year around 30 of these vessels, because we have a lot of work in Fugro, so we need also these vessels, long-term and short-term. I think I think it is also very nice to mention that I'm also part of IMCA's greenhouse gas focal group, together with John, our chairman, and Lee. All right, I think that is it.
Brilliant.
Shall I pass it on to you, Ben?
Yeah,
or
thanks.
Would you like to
No, that's
say something
perfect.
back?
Thanks, Iris. Ben, over to you.
Thanks very much, Iris. So my name's Ben Neal. I'm the head of HSSEQ with P&O Maritime Logistics. We're head office over in Dubai. We have just under 400 ships. We're primarily, we've got 3 verticals within P&O. We have cargo transport, we have port services, which towage and pilotage. But by far the biggest vertical, especially with emissions, is our offshore division. A lot of you are probably familiar more with Topaz. Topaz was acquired by DP World and merged with P&O. We have just under 70 offshore vessels. And I'm responsible for our decarbonisation pathway in P&O. One that we're very proud of. We spent a lot of time, we didn't use consultants. We engaged with our teams in the different verticals and different business units that we operate in and built from the bottom up our decarbonisation pathway. And we have some ambitious goals, which we're heading in the right direction for. We have targets of a 28% reduction by 2030, to be carbon neutral by 2040, and the big ultimate goal, net zero by 2050. Thank
Brilliant. You. Thanks, Ben. So, any questions out there so far? Okay, brilliant. Gentlemen there, thank you.
Good afternoon, Philip Woodcock, Architect International. My question is for John and Gaby. On your larger vessels, have you looked at doing any sorts of upgrades to the HVAC system to try and achieve savings? And if you have, what have you done, and have they produced any worthwhile results?
Shall I start? Yeah. Yeah, we did, because some of the systems were inefficiently designed and inefficiently operated. So we tried to get that part of inefficiency out. And for instance, one of the inefficiencies that I found on the HVAC of the diving support vessels is that it, especially when operating in the North Sea, it runs with a cooling water system of the same temperature as the seawater temperature. Now that was a pretty easy fix, and those kind of systems is that is not found during design. That you'll only find that out during operation.
I think probably the same. Just in general, of course, we're looking at every aspect of the fleet's operation, each individual vessel's operation, in order to maximize efficiency wherever we can. And I think it's important to understand it's not just a question about the main engines, but all of the auxiliary systems that we also operate on each vessel. As to specific examples, I don't have those in my head, I'm afraid. I would need to refer to my colleagues to tell you about those.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Keep thinking of questions. Iris, you talked about vessels without a crew, and that you're operating, I think you said 7?
Yeah, nowadays 7. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we are
okay.
going to expand this fleet dramatically in the future. So that
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like a big step, operating things without a crew. Can you talk a little bit about how the company made that decision and the sorts of operations that are carried out?
Yeah, sure. I think I would like to first make a start with what are we aiming for. Huh? We've set quite an ambitious goal. We want to be net zero in 2035. We realize that is really soon and that we need to work very hard to achieve this. But we are a purpose-led company and we think we need to do the right thing. And it is, of course, not only that we are living in a sort of dream world in Fugro, but it is also the stakeholders are really looking at companies on what we are doing. And they set also their own targets on the emissions. Their scope 3 emissions are our scope 1 emissions. So we set the goal on our scope 1 and 2 emissions, and it is that is our vessel emissions is also a very large part. We've calculated that it is around around 80% comes from the vessels. So we thought we really need to focus on these vessel emissions. And how do we do that? That is maybe then the second question. Of course, we have a lot of energy efficiency measures in place. I've seen already many examples from you, John, and from Gaby. There was a lot of similarity in there. But of course, you will gain approximately 25% with it, what is really large. So that is, we are focusing also on that. But to make the whole transition, we need to do more. We need to go for this. We are aiming for this net zero goal. And we cannot do that only with efficient operations. So what else do? We have our crewed vessels. That is on these vessels. We are working on hybrid solutions. Next year we are going to convert 2 vessels, not on the propulsion systems, and we will put on a battery package. Same as Boskalis is doing, we do that on DP vessels. What else do? We are aiming for an alternative fuel. We choose methanol. This week we had our Fugro pioneer. She left the yard. She is ready for the first part of the conversion. So she's almost ready. It is, except from the engines, everything is in place. Of course, it looks quite crucial, but there's a lot going on, extra piping, an extra bunker station, and tanks to cover them, so there's a lot around. And at the end of this year, we will also install the engines, and then we are ready. Then we have our first vessel ready for methanol. What else do? That is the unmanned vessel operations. Yeah. We need to expand a lot in there, but yeah, it helps us a lot in the transition. It is a 95% reduction at the moment. So that is, I say at the moment because we are still fueling them with MGO. But we are also searching for solutions for these vessels. Yeah, and we have also the third-party fleets. That is also part of our Scope 1 emissions. And our third-party fleets, we have already these conversations. We put already targets on them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So the thing that struck me, and it hadn't come up so much earlier when you mentioned unmanned vessels, is that you don't need people for those, I guess, apart from onshore. And we've touched upon the fact that a lot of the changes are going to need people, people to stay in the industry, new people to come in, and actually for them to be to develop skills that perhaps haven't always been in place. So it struck me as an interesting area to explore. And I know, Ben, you've been doing a lot of work around. When we first spoke, you talked about some of the digital tools that you've been applying in P&R. I wondered if you could say a little bit about that and the data that you've looked at and the nice chat bot tool that you showed me, which I was very impressed with.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, like a lot of organisations, the most important starting point for the decarbonisation journey is the data and making sure it's correct and standardised. So obviously, we've got the dashboards. We use all our own internal systems where we also get the data from our vessel daily reports. But in terms of the AI system we're using, last year we built an AI safety bot, which you might have seen in the IMCA safety forum, which was trained on our safety data. And then what we did late last year was we built a we call it Deep Sea, Decarbonisation and Energy Efficiency Project Companion. And it's trained again on scraping specific websites, but also on our own internal procedures. But there's also a bit of, we allow a bit of ChatGPT generated information. And basically our crew can ask questions to Deep Sea, either support with generating of presentations, support with report writing, ideas, inspiration, subjects for health and safety meetings, whatever they need, more on the administrative side, and in any language. So what we're seeing at the moment is I can see every question that's being asked to Deep Sea. I can't see who, I can't see where, but I can see the questions coming in. So we also get that data set. So if particular people are asking for decarbonisation subjects for health and safety meetings, then we know that maybe we've got an area that we can focus our training on. So that's also very important data. But we're averaging around 200 questions a week. And it would be more, I've no doubt, if with the connectivity offshore. So it's 200 questions a week, and this is 200 questions that's not coming to our health and safety team. So they're not stuck at a computer, and it's the feedback from the crew is that it's very, very positive, and it was all made at very little cost. And it's anybody can do it really. It's all open source, so it's a tool. We took a bit of a risk because obviously a lot of companies are very apprehensive at the moment about GPT, but it works, and our crew, the feedback from our crew is very positive.
Yeah, brilliant. Question. Philip on the front, please. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Lee. It's actually a two-part question. The first one, it's basically for those who've got sort of big equipment on their vessels. Have you actually practical examples of kinetic energy recovery systems, and what sort of advantage are you getting out of it if you've tried it? Because we hear about heat recovery, but what about kinetic energy recovery as part of the efficiency of the vessel? And the second one, as just the overall solution to the problem, is anybody actually looking at onboard carbon capture storage systems for offshore construction vessels in your fleets, your practical fleets?
Very good.
Carbon capturing the answer is no. I haven't looked into it yet. The other one was a must. on the Boskalis 2, where we have the motion compensated gripper frame, we needed to compensate, get the kinetic energy back into capacitors, because otherwise the electric motors couldn't work with it at all. So it was a requirement indeed. Yeah.
I think on the second one, the carbon capture is certainly on the roadmap as a potential, but depending on the rate at which it scales and the technical feasibility and of course the cost, space requirements, energy requirements, that kind of thing. So lots of questions about it, but certainly it's a potential solution, but we need to see how it evolves.
Ben, Iris, no?
Not
on that one?
from our side.
Okay. Thanks, Philip. Okay, over here, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jay Shah. I'm representing Puris. So my question is related to that emissions for the scope 1. As a ship owner, which metric we should publish as a ESG report, like CO2 or CO2e? Because in the era of regulations, we all know that EU MRV IMO DCS is asking for CO2, and Fuel EU is coming up for the CO2e, which is covering up the GHG emissions. So, and on the other side, we have that investors' requirement of ESG report on various standards of ISSB, GRI, and all types of stuff that are asking for CO2e, which is necessary for the GHG emissions. So, as a ship owner, which terms that we should publish to become a credibility? Because every vessels have a different criteria, and if we have a fleet of LNG, then methane will be much higher. So that's why maybe IMO or EU MRV is focusing on CO2. So my question is that if PNO or Fugro, what they are doing for this kind of stuff, and how they are doing the process for this, and if it is not there as a focal GHG emission committee, as a IMCA, what kind of solution that we can bring up, because offshore wind vessel is also coming up next for that.
All right, thank you.
Can I try to answer this question? This long one. Yeah, we are focusing on the CO2 emissions, so that is the very short answer. Our target is on scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. So it is not this is the operations we do and also the facilities, and it is net zero. So that is a sort of well to wake approach, of course. Yeah. And of course, we have considered also methane, but we see that as not material because we are not an LNG vessel.
Yeah. Okay.
We're reporting CO2, and I think what you've highlighted is a challenge in the industry, just with the reporting to clients or the reporting to different legislators, regulatory bodies, is that they're all asking for different information. So I think an approach and where we can get support from the likes of IMCA and ISOA is with the standardization of the reporting, because it is a challenge, certainly from our side. One client's asking for one thing, one's asking for another, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources making sure that information's correct.
Yeah, I agree. I think you touch on one of the big risks for us as businesses, that ultimately we will report in line with the requirements that are placed upon us, whether that's coming from law or regulation or customers or somewhere else. And so we need to have the systems in place to be able to measure fuel consumption, convert that potentially using different conversion factors, different global warming potentials on a well-to-wake basis, a tank-to-wake basis. So all sorts of different consolidation classification measures, and report and disclose credibly against all of those different requirements. So it's complicated and it's confusing. I think an added confusion that we'll face in the future is also around how to account for the use of biofuels, which I don't think is clear at the moment, and how that impacts our reporting against all of those regulations and standards. So again, it's one we just need to keep track of and ensure that we're prepared for when the time comes.
Okay.
Nothing to add to that.
Okay, fine. Yes. Ian. Hope it's not too difficult.
Here we go, if you can hear me. So I think, something that IMCA's seen and the industry's seen is behavioural-based safety was that big step change. So I heard the term for the first time recently was, behavioural-based sustainability, and I guess it's all about people. I mean, you talked about it through AI, but what else, Gaby, Ben, everyone, what else are you doing with your crews, I guess, because they can operate it differently in terms of highlighting the opportunities they have, we have safety moments, that we have, sustainability moments. What are you doing with relation to crew training or crew behaviour that's going to influence the way that they operate the vessels in the short term till we get all of this fantastic new technology?
Yep, so we have behavioural-based decarbonisation. So my background's primarily safety, and like a lot of health and safety professionals, have had to upskill with the into energy efficiency. And I think as an industry, we can be extremely proud of our safety record. Yes, there's definitely room for improvement, and with Safety 2.0 and HOP and everything coming through. But the behavioural-based safety programs, what we did in P&O is we looked at, okay, well, what can we transition into decarbonisation, and what, without bamboozling the crew with all this new terminology. And it went down quite well. And one of the things that we used is, we're all familiar with a LARP, as low as reasonably practical, but put a spin on it for decarbonisation to AMARP, which is as much as reasonably practical. Because obviously we can't stop the ships, but we can go slower to save emissions. And then looking at things like the toolbox talks and stand downs for decarbonisation, where we collaborate with the contractors, have discussions, but also the recognition programs that we put in place for safety that can be easily converted for decarbonisation. Same well done to the crew that operated the vessel most efficiently, or came up with the best idea for things like the HVAC systems. So there's lots of, wrote a list so I didn't go off on a tangent as well. The leadership, vitally important in safety, but also important in decarbonisation. That when our senior leaders are going on board the vessels, that they're also talking about decarbonisation and listening to the crew's challenges. Because it's all good us saying that we're sailing at efficient speeds, but when we enter the 500 metre zone, we're left on DP for 2 hours. We need to be having these discussions, listening to the crew, and relaying them back to our clients.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I wanted the focus of this session to be on the things that are happening today that don't necessarily need huge amounts of money or investment to be made, and actually those sorts of behavioural things, leadership behaviours, changing the culture so that we think about emissions and emissions reduction as well as safety, seems like a relatively easy win. So yeah, thanks, Ben. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, can I say something about
sure.
this? Yeah. I also wrote down software people. It was in one of the presentations. Was it yours or not?
Could have been.
Oh, okay. Well, I found it a nice one. What we are doing is we are holding sustainability team meetings, and we've seen also that the crew is sick of that we bombard them with circular memos and etc. So we thought we are having these meetings, small meetings in the regions, and then we touch up on the regulations, what is upcoming, what is the view, but also really regional items. And we have the dialogue on what they are doing today. That's fantastic what they all share. It is unbelievable how creative all these people are. So I think it is a gold mine all this feedback from these people. And we share a lot of information. What we also do, if we hear something, a good idea in this region, we try to transfer it also to other regions. But we keep the groups very small, because then people will start talking and with breakout rooms, maybe some games and everything. So that is what we are doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know whether SciPem are here today. They were due to attend, but I've heard something similar from them as well, that actually small groups, little and often, people really engage with it, and there's been some really good results from doing that. So yes, that's good to hear. Sorry.
There's a saying in safety, and you've probably heard it, there's no confidentiality in safety. And I think, again, as an industry, we're very good at sharing when incidents happen and the lessons learned. And I think we need to get to that same sort of level with decarbonisation. You know, from those small meetings, we can share them. You know, that I don't think there's, maybe our commercial will find a reason not to, but I think everybody else, you know, and share these lessons learned and these quick wins that we get on board the vessel, because we all face the same challenges, you know, listening to John. And so, you know, the collaboration is key in working together.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is the knowledge is on board, so you have
Without
to collect
doubt,
it on
yeah.
board.
Yeah.
And they know what they are doing, but it's just the message that a lot of times is being conveyed towards the ships is contradiction. Because for sake of safety, we run all engines at multiple splits. And that's if as a crew you get that message, then you become risk adverse. And then you don't want to speak out anymore. That okay, I'll switch the boards together with one engine less. Yeah, but that's a risk. So the message that we convey towards the ships, that we from the shore convey towards the ships, that should also be with a sustainability content.
Yep. Brilliant. So we're into the last minute. I'm going to grant each of you a wish. So I'm a magic fairy. I'm going to wave a wand. It's only valid for today. What's the one thing that you would like to do today to reduce emissions in your business? So 10 seconds or so each on that. Who wants to go first?
I'll get the wind industry at the same pace as oil and gas in providing us with means to reduce emissions.
Okay, brilliant. Ben?
To get to the same level of engagement as we have in safety with the Stop Work Authority, so that our crews are commended if, for example, they're asked to go at full speed and they say no for our emissions, we're gonna keep it down. So to get to that level of engagement.
Okay.
John?
So adding to these two, I guess maybe a real pull from our customers. So a move from ambition to real actual decision making based upon greenhouse gas emissions.
Brilliant. Last but not least, Iris?
Exactly the same as Ben said. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm sure.
You
I'm
don't
sure.
get another wish.
No. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks to you all. Please, could you thank our panel members?